Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So as you guys may have seen from the title of this video, this is the story about how I survived my tumor. So I haven't really written anything down, but let's just sit back, relax, grab a little tea. I have a tea as well. Get cozy. It might be a long ride, so we'll see. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know where to start. I am in bed, I am comfy, I am cozy. I hope you guys are as well. But yeah, so basically, I guess I start from the beginning. This happened around, let's say 2021, 2022 now. I remember just one day, I was living abroad. So I was not in the UK when this all kind of kicked off and started. But I was living abroad. I was working in a high-tech company, corporate, you know. I was living by myself in a studio. And I remember just one night, I just couldn't get comfortable. Like, on my couch. And I thought maybe it was my posture. And yeah, so I kind of just started being more and more aware of the fact that I had this really weird back pain that just wasn't going away. And then it kind of slowly progressed from there. So I remember I would go to doctor's appointments and I would go for x-rays and I remember the doctor saying, yeah, you know, you have slight scoliosis, but it's okay. Nothing to be worried about. And then it just kind of getting worse and worse. The back pain got so bad. I couldn't sleep. I was self-medicating in a very toxic way. And yeah, I kept getting worse and I kept going to the doctor being like, I'm not okay. And I remember she said like, oh, it's because you're working in a corporate high-tech environment. You know, you're at your desk all the time and you're probably not sitting in a really good position. And so I remember I got, you know, a whole MacBook screen out of my own pocket because the company wasn't paying for it. So I bought my own like Mac keyboard and this and everything to try and make sure I was like better posture at my work desk. And that never helped. And then it just got worse and worse. And I remember it started the one summer where my friends would make fun of me because I kept falling over my feet. And they're like, oh my God, Laurie's so clumsy. And yes, if you know me, I am very, very clumsy. I am that friend that a water bottle would break on the train. And yeah, so all my friends were like, oh my God, Laurie, you're so clumsy. And I used to go for morning walks every morning. So it'd be like an hour and a half walk. And I just realized, you know, my pace was getting slower. I realized I started going to like traffic lights, and when I would stop, I'd fall over my feet and just balance. And so these symptoms got worse and worse, but I obviously didn't know what it was at the time. And I just kept going to the doctors and just kept saying like, I'm not okay. So yeah, it was kind of getting a bit weird. And yeah, like I wasn't the typical person that fitted the criteria. So, you know, in hindsight, I've spoken to a lot of doctors and they're like, if you came into my office, I wouldn't have thought the same thing. So yeah, so then it kind of got to a point, I remember distinctly, I think 2 catalyst moments. One, I went skiing and snowboarding with my brothers and I fell and hit my head with the snowboard on my head. I don't know how I felt. I don't know how I hit my head, but I remember I was like passed out on the snow and I just getting off the ski lift, and the next thing you know, I saw was this English guy standing over me and he was like, you fell, you hit your head, you've been unconscious for 3 minutes, but you're okay. And this is only like the second time I've ever been snowboarding. So I remember I was like at the top of the mountain. I had to go all the way down and I was like crying in my helmet. I was like, get me down, get me home. This isn't fun. Why do people say this is fun? This isn't fun. And anyway, so yeah, that was a big moment for me. And then I think it kind of exacerbated it a bit and made it worse. So that's when my symptoms kind of like sped up. I think. So I really couldn't walk. I was doing Pilates 3 times a week. My instructor said to me, she's like, Laura, you've been coming to me for like 2-3 months. Normally people get stronger. You're getting weaker. Like, you're not okay. And I was like, I'm not okay. I started crying during the Pilates class. And yeah, and then another time I remember I went to go get eggs, and when I tell you, it was just like around the block. Like, I didn't have to cross the road, nothing. The only thing I had to cross was like a bike lane. And I was walking home, and all of a sudden I just fell. And I remember I literally couldn't lift my legs up. My legs couldn't unbend. It was the weirdest feeling. I couldn't push myself up from the ground, and I was there for like 5 minutes. And a Walt driver came up to me, and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm not okay. And he like basically carried me to my apartment. And the craziest thing was, like, I could see like my building apartment door. I just couldn't get there. And then I went upstairs, and I was like, Mom, like, I'm not okay. Like, I'm not a hypochondriac. Like, this is not this is not okay. Like, I need to just go privately. Like, I know it's like 3,000 times the price, but like, I need to go see a normal English speaking doctor, because I was living abroad, and I was living in a country that didn't speak English. So trying to explain to them, like, I feel like a tin man, I feel like I can't move, I can't walk, they didn't understand it. So I ended up finding a South African neurologist, and I'm born in South Africa, so I was like, okay, cool, I can relate to him on like a personal level. And so long story short, I went there, and he was like, you need to have an MRI. Okay, fine. He was like, I'm going to schedule an MRI for your head, neck, and back. And now, fine, cool, let's schedule it. So then it was on to the scheduling moment. And then obviously they were like, okay, well, we can only schedule the head and neck, and then the back is going to be in 2 months from now. And it just wasn't all at the same time. And bear in mind, my legs were getting worse. I could not hold my bladder. I could not walk. I was driving. I couldn't feel the pedals. It was not okay. And I had to drive myself to the hospital at 1 a.m. for my MRI at like 2:30. Fine, I drive myself there. They tell me to wait 40 minutes so I can get the CD. I got the CD, and I then emailed the neurologist, and I was like, hey, like, I just had it last night. I don't know how you're going to get it, but this is, I have it. And my battery on my camera is about to die. So we'll see. I might have to cut it out, but let's keep going. Anyway, sorry. But so he emails me back, and he was like, hey, if you get to my office by 2 p.m. I can see you. And I'm driving, I'm rushing through traffic, like trying to not be caught by police, but speeding there. And I run into his office at like 2:05, and he had his bag on and everything ready to leave. And he was like, talk about timing, Miss Ezekiel. So we go into his office, we sit down, and he's going through the MRI, and he says, why on the CD does it say head and neck when they've done your back as well? Okay, sorry, I am back. I hope that angle didn't change too much. I think it did a little bit. Oh, let me move it back a bit. No! Okay, so anyway, we're back. Sorry about that. So anyway, he was going through the MRI, and he says to me, he's like, I've got some really good news for you, and I've got some really bad news for you. He's like, he says to me, he's like, so bad news, you have a tumor. Good news, you have the best kind of tumor that anyone wants. So me being abroad in a country that doesn't speak English, it's not their first language, I am like, right, let me try call my mom. No answer. Let me call my dad. No answer. I try them both again. No answer. I call my older brother. No answer. And so yeah, and then I just leave, and I'm driving around in my little Hyundai H10, my little red Sheila, as I called her. And I'm just driving around in this daze like, I have a tumour. What? And I'm driving around, and I ended up, finding, I was like, oh, I recognize where I am. I'm by my brother's girlfriend, so let me go in, let me kind of, speak to someone, try to get hold of my parents, whatever. And yeah, so that's kind of what happened. And then that was like, I swear, like the Tuesday. And I came home and I said to my roommate, I was like, hey, I'm leaving. I'm gonna fly back to London on Friday. I'll pay for the rest of this month's rent, but after that, like, you're on your own. Please don't ask me questions. I'm just like, not right now. I can't deal with that. And she made it all about her and she started crying, and I was like, this is my fucking issue, not your issue. Why are you crying? Anyway, my mom flies out on the Friday. We were supposed to fly home on the Sunday together, and we just missed the flight because the doctor was like, come see me Monday. I saw him Monday. He was like, I have a surgeon. I know he's flying for holidays soon, but he might be around. He calls him, no answer. 5 minutes later, the surgeon calls him back. And he's like, if she can get to my house in 30 minutes, I will see her because I have an operation to go do. And it kind of just like, that already to me showed just how lucky I was, because the fact that the surgeon, one, took the call and called him back, and two, was like, yeah, come to my home so I can examine you. So, like, it's the fact that he made that time. And so he said to me, he did like an extensive kind of tests and, all of that. And he said to me, yeah, so you definitely, like, it's bad. He was like, obviously it doesn't look like a cancerous tumor. You don't have to be out, like, it doesn't have to be out today, but it has to be out within the week. And that's what happened. Within the week, I was in hospital having my tumor removed. And so basically it was a meningioma tumor on my T7 in the neurosac or whatever it is. So basically the tumor was pushing against my nerves, and I was losing control, and I was going paralyzed from the waist down. And the surgeon said to me after the operation, he says, like, he has never seen someone's nerves like bounce back when he lifted the tumor. He said, you were so close from paralysis. And yeah, so it was kind of crazy. And at that point I was getting very into like the lucky girl syndrome and looking at the angel numbers. And I remember like 3 days before, I was like, God, just send me a sign. Just send me a sign. And I remember seeing someone's number plate that said 777, and I was like, okay, I'm lucky. Everything's going to be fine. And within the week, I was having my tumor removed. Like, once they found the tumor, it was a very, very quick process, and it worked, and it was just done really, really well. Initially, I didn't want to have the operation in the country I was in, because I was like, I want to be with English speakers. I want to know what the doctors are saying about me when they're in my room. But in hindsight, I'm very, very happy it happened abroad. Not to shit on the NHS, but I would have been paralyzed. No return. So everything happened really quickly. I'm very, very grateful for it. But it was scary, and it's still scary. I still have flares up. I had a little bit of nerve damage as a result of the operation. So I'll never be completely normal, but at least I don't have a tumor, or at least I'm not paralyzed. And so I'm very grateful for that, and very lucky. And yeah, so essentially meningioma tumors are most common for women over the age of 45 who are unhealthy. And so the fact that I was young, relatively skinny, you could say, I have a good body, I was doing Pilates 3-4 times a week. So I understand now why the doctors didn't think I was a candidate to have a tumor. But the fact that I was suffering in this pain for about a year and a half. I mean, I think it was 2022 roughly. Then I had the operation in 23. Yeah, 23, I think. Yeah, so if you're listening to this or you're watching this, I would just highly listen to your body. You know, I remember I was listening to body and I was like, I'm not okay, but I was in this corporate company that wouldn't let me go to these doctor's appointments and would kick up a fuss if I had to come in late because I had a doctor's appointment. And it was just really difficult. It was really difficult to see a doctor outside of working times, my working times, but within their working times. It put a really bad sour taste in my mouth for corporate operations. But yeah, so I think the moral is just listen to your body, because you know best. It's your body. You know when you're not okay. And it took me a really long time to kind of just come to the terms of like, you need to go to the doctor, dude. You need to take your life seriously. And now in hindsight, you know, I think of a time 5 years prior to my operation of when I was at university running on a treadmill, and I was like, dude, and I said to my friend, I was like, it feels like there's a ball in my back. We just laughed it off of like, oh, I'm just unfit, I can't run. But like, no, I had a tumor growing, I think, for like 5-10 years easily. It just got really bad towards the end. So, you know, I couldn't walk, I couldn't lift my legs, I couldn't go to the toilet, you know. And at the age of like 24, 25, I was embarrassed the fact that I couldn't keep my gas in, you know. I was in these Pilates classes or having coffee with my friends and I couldn't hold my stomach together. There were times where I would run home to the toilet and, you know, have an accident in my front door because I couldn't get the keys unlocked. I couldn't find my keys in my bag to open my front door. And so it was not fun and it wasn't attractive, and it's taken me a long time. I mean, I think I'm very chill with it. If you ask my friends, like when I tell them, I'm very like nonchalant about it. I think it's just because I've told the story quite a few times, but I've never really sat and reflected. I think this is the first time I've really sat with myself, because obviously there's no one around but you guys when you guys will watch this. But, you know, I think if I allowed myself right now, I could cry because it is weird to think and it is crazy to think. But yeah, so that's my story, I guess, that's the story of how I survived my meningioma tumor. I think I'm very lucky and grateful that it was cool and that I did have amazing doctors around me. And yeah, so I just feel really lucky and grateful. But moral of the story, definitely just look after yourself and put yourself forward and first. And it was scary, you know. I don't think I allowed myself to cry. So I think I still haven't cried about it. You know, I remember it was kind of the immediate of, okay, at least we know what it is. At least it's an operation and I'll be fine. At least it's not, you know, those awful diseases that your body like slowly, you know, just stops working. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I don't think I allowed myself the grace to cry. I remember I picked my parents up from the airport. And bear in mind, I couldn't drive. Like, I couldn't feel the pedals. But I remember picking my parents up and I was just like, don't cry, don't hug me, no, we can't do this. Not at the airport, not right now. And I don't think we ever cried together as a family about it. And yeah, if you ask my parents, they were shocked. You know, apparently my dad took my call and I told him. And I remember I was like, Dad, I have a tumor. And he was like, what do you mean a tumor? I was like, that's what I mean. Like, I have a tumor. And he was like, what? And then he was like, whatever you do, just don't tell your mother yet. Like, let's figure out what we're gonna say to her together. And I was like, oh, I've already told her, sorry. So yeah, it was definitely a shock. I mean, apparently my dad took my phone call and like walked out, and all of his colleagues were like, you look ill, like you look white, like what happened? So yeah, like I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the story in a nutshell without getting too emotional and too much info. But it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's still tough. I'm still in rehab, like physical therapy rehab. There are days that I can't walk. I mean, some days are harder than others. I can't do activities as much as I would like, you know, friends activities and stuff. I remember I went to the quad bike, and that kind of just fucked up all my rehab, so it took me back to like square one. You know, I struggle to ride bikes still. I'm not allowed to ride horses. I'm not allowed to do like games activity kind of vibe, you know. So yeah, again, I'm grateful that I'm alive and I can walk. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's something I'll always live with. You know, even now my back is really sore, and I'm trying to go back for another MRI because it is the same pain that I had when I had the tumor, and that is scaring me. But unlike the last time, this time I'm being more proactive about it. So yeah, that's kind of my story about how I survived my tumor. I hope you have lasted this long on watching this video. I hope it's not boring. I hope it's somewhat relatable. I don't know. I just felt the need to put this video out there and just share my story, because I know if I was suffering the way I was and I saw a video of someone talking about it, it might have sparked me to like go to the doctor more, or use the trigger words. Like if I said to the doctors I'm experiencing drop foot, I would have had the MRI like months ago. I just didn't know what drop foot was, and that was one of the symptoms. So if you're experiencing any symptoms that I've said, sore back, loss of balance, you know, falling over your feet, unable to move, you know, sharp pains in your feet, and I had throbbing in my nerves on my feet, like any of this, go to the doctor and say, I'm in a lot of pain and I think I'm experiencing drop foot, because that is like the main trigger word apparently. So yeah, I mean, what I'll do, I'll show you guys. Give me a second. Scrolling for days. Oh my god, this is still 2025. Shit. Oh my god. Ah, here it is. So, if you can see, that is the MRI, and the ball is the tumor, and the dark kind of the dark line there, that is my nerves. So as you can see, it was completely cutting off all circulation of my nerves. So yeah, we called a little tumor tea. That was me straight after the operation. The drugs were nice, I won't lie. This one's a bit graphic, but this is my scar directly after, and I had like tubes. It was gross. But yeah, so moral of the story is just look after yourself and put yourself first, because no corporation or no boyfriend or friend is ever gonna love you the way you love you. So love you to the max and always put yourself first. And yeah, so that's kind of it. That's my story of how I survived my tumor. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. And I will hopefully see you guys more and soon. So yeah, I think that is it. Thank you and good night.